Hello, welcome to the video explaining the NEWMT website, how to navigate and use it. Let's begin. This is the home page, the NEWMT website. Got a nice animation that you can pause whenever you want. We've got a top bar and we've got two main buttons here. The top bar has a couple buttons that help us navigate the website. Over here on the left is the home button. Click that anytime you want to get back to this main page. In the middle, we have the three main areas of the NEWMT website. We have the curriculum page, the instruments page, and the About Us page. We'll go over those in depth in a little bit. On the right, there's a button that takes you to our YouTube channel, which has some videos talking about the philosophy behind NEWMT, showing demos of our different lessons, and also explaining the technology. On the top, there's a little banner that takes you to a page explaining how to set up new sensors and also showing you what the different buttons on your sensor do. Okay, let's explore the home page. The first thing you'll see are two buttons that take you to the curriculum and the instruments page, since those are the two main pages. Let's explore the curriculum page first. On the curriculum page, you'll be greeted with our educational map, which has different nodes. Underneath that is the vocabulary section, where you can find different term definitions. We have music terms, neurodiversity terms, and technology terms. The first spot on the map is the resources page, where teachers can find videos, slides, and transcripts that go over different concepts that you'll need when starting to use NEWMT. Each lesson page will have a button so you can download the PDF of the lesson, and we'll have the PDF hosted so you can see it in your browser. Here's what a lesson looks like. We have 4 lessons in total. Now let's look at the About Us page. This is where you can find information about the different parties involved in creating this curriculum and technology. You can find our project roadmap as well. On the instrument page, you'll be greeted with 3 main areas. There's the global effects area, there's the sidebar, and there's the instrument rack. To load an instrument in, you can either click on the Add Instrument button, or you can choose one of these 3 presets that correspond with our curriculum: Sonic Introduction, Rain Stick, and Wearable Jazz. Each of these presets are made up of one of these 6 instruments: loop, tap, rain stick, drums, melody, and harmony. We'll be going over all of these instruments shortly. Sonic Introduction introduces us to our first 2 instruments, loop and tap. Now loop and tap have been loaded into the rack. You can see here's tap, here's loop. Now if we want to connect one of our sensors to these instruments, we can click on the Connect Sensor button. You can see my sensors appeared in this pop-up. I can click on Sense Test 2 and then click Pair. It'll say connecting. Once the sensor is connected, it'll automatically connect to any instruments you have open that aren't already connected to a sensor. So you can see here, on tap and on loop, I have sensor test 2 connected. Each instrument has a top row of buttons that do different functions. There's a title, and then there's also an area showing which sensor you're connected to and on which axis you're connected. So here, I can choose whichever sensor I want out of any sensors that I've connected. There's also the axis that you're connected to. So I can change which axis on my sensor I am connected to. For example, I can change to roll, which means I'm twisting the sensor, or I can change to shake, which means I'm shaking the sensor. The sensor's mode is shown right next to this area. Let's start reviewing each instrument. Every instrument has a top row of buttons. Each of these buttons do different functions. The X button gets rid of the instrument from your rack. The mouse mode button changes the instrument from using sensors to using your mouse. Mouse mode allows you to control the instruments with your mouse, just in case a student doesn't want to necessarily use the sensors. I can change the axis right here. The X-axis means that the instrument is being controlled by moving my mouse across the screen. The Y-axis means the instrument is controlled by moving my mouse up and down, as you can see here. The invert button inverts the signal to this instrument. Now we're going to go over each instrument's functionality. I'll be using mouse mode to keep this demonstration simple. Underneath Tap's title, there's an area where you can choose different sounds. If I want to choose clap, I click on clap. I can preview the sound with this play button right next to it. Underneath that are the main controls of the instrument. We have volume, which controls the volume of the instrument. So here it's very quiet, and here it's very loud. Next to the volume, we have the threshold control, which controls when tap plays its sound. Tap is an instrument that plays a sound whenever you pass a given threshold. So for example, if I move my mouse, which corresponds to this purple bar, past this orange bar, it'll trigger my sound. I can move this orange bar somewhere else and trigger it by moving a different direction. So this instrument is very good for triggering sounds that you only want to happen during specific behaviors. For example, if we're pretending to play baseball and we have one of our sensors connected to a bat, we could put the baseball bat sound into tap and trigger it whenever we swing the bat. The next instrument I want to demonstrate is loop. Here we have the title. We have a similar sound selection area as tap. We can test those sounds with the play button again. I can raise the volume, which loops my sound. So loop is sort of like a record. When you push it one direction, it plays the sound. When you push it the other direction, it starts playing the sound backward. This might be better demonstrated with a different sound. The sensitivity control controls how sensitive loop is to your motion. If I turn the sensitivity all the way down, turn my volume up, I need to move my mouse a very far distance for it to react. If I turn the sensitivity all the way up, I only have to move a shorter distance for loop to react. If you have a sensor, that's the same. So if you have your sensor strapped to your wrist, if you have the sensitivity all the way down, you'll need to turn very far for a loop to react. If you have the sensitivity all the way up, you'll just have to turn a little bit for loop to react. This is good for students that have limited ranges of motion. Next is the rain stick instrument. This is our recreation digitally of an analog rain stick. But instead of just having beads, you can put in a sound from this list of sounds. One of them is a rain stick sound. So let's put in a rain stick sound and demonstrate what the rain stick sounds like. Sounds like a rain stick, right? Well, now I can change this, maybe to bubbles. And when I move my sensor or my mouse in one direction, it'll tilt the rain stick, which makes the sound start playing. Like beads in a rain stick, the sound is chopped up into small fragments. The behavior of the rain stick can be controlled with these parameters here. Next, we have the drums. Again, you have the title and the sensor connection area. The parameters of the drums are again volume, and then click and sensitivity. Sensitivity is similar to loop sensitivity, in which if you increase the sensitivity, that means you need a smaller range of motion to trigger the instrument. If you decrease the sensitivity, you need a larger range of motion. The click adds a hi-hat sound, playing on different subdivisions. The first one is off, the second one is quarter notes, then eighth notes, then 16th notes. And the drums sound like this. On one side, we have the kick drum trigger, and then on the other side, we have the snare drum trigger. Next, we have the melody. Again, we have the title and the sensor connection area. To demonstrate it, I'll turn it into mouse mode. And you can hear straight away what the melody instrument does. It's basically a lead part that plays different notes as you move up and down. This instrument only has one control, which is probability. As I turn the probability down, it lowers the chance of a note being triggered. All the way down to some very, very low probabilities. Finally, we have the harmony. Again, we have the title and instrument connection areas, and below that, we have only one control, which is the volume. The harmony, when you move your sensor, sounds something like this. It provides a harmonic bed for your other instruments. In this section, I'll be talking about the effects panel. Here we have global volume, which controls the volume of every instrument. And then we have an effects area. We've got reverb, which washes out your sound. We have other effects that can be controlled with a sensor. We have a DJ filter. On one side is a high pass, which means it only lets through the high sounds. And then that high pass switches to a low pass, which means it only lets in the low sounds. Next we have an echo. On one side we have no echoing happening. And on the other side we have a lot. Next we have the glitch effect, which as you move off of neutral gives you different glitching effects. That's the effects panel. Lastly, let's look at the side panel. Here you can do a lot of functions quickly, like add an instrument, which then appears down here. That's helpful for if you have a lot of instruments, you can still add some more without having to scroll all the way up to the top. You can also connect a sensor and you can click this arrow button to go all the way up to your effects. At the bottom, there's the soundboard, which is a supplementary instrument used for teachers in the sports orchestra lesson. It allows you to play different sounds. Finally, we have a tempo control on the top, which controls the tempo of your instruments. You can really hear this in wearable jazz and in the echo control. If I bring it up, that means the tempo is going to be faster. So for example, I can have drums, have my hi-hat on, and you can hear how fast it is. If I bring it down, it gets slower. That's what the tempo control does.